during this journey, all of a sudden, I am the entity that is watching myself at that bar at that same time. Literally, it was my higher consciousness looking at myself. The veil was, lifted, and it was like you saw, you experience these other dimensions and these other entities, and it, just the amount of information that flowed to you during these experiences was incredible.
The feeling that that freedom, that higher consciousness makes you a magnet, and so that attracts the experiences that you need according to your vibration. And it'll come to you. Just keep working on it. Your motivation transforms from running away from the stick to chasing the apple. And when you get to that break point where you have had the taste of the apple, then your practice and your awareness and everything just greatly accelerates.
I was given a new heart there on that second trip down, but literally my chest felt like it was literally cut open, and the next day it hurt from surgery, but the most incredible feeling of love hit me for probably 15, 20 hours that I've never experienced in my life. Welcome back to the Tim Teaches podcast. I'm your host, Tim McCoy. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming Dean Graves. Dean is the author of The Enigma of Consciousness, a spiritual exploration of humanity's relationship to creation. This book takes readers on a deep dive into the origins and purpose of existence. Dean is also a podcaster, keynote speaker, mental health counselor, and meditation guide with over 2 decades of experience. His work explores philosophy, psychology, and spirituality. He helps individuals navigate the complexities of consciousness and find inner peace. Dean, welcome to Tim Teaches. I appreciate you joining me, and can't wait to pick your brain and hear what you're into.
All right. Thank you, Tim. I'm delighted to be here.
So how did you get into podcasting?
I missed a meeting and was drafted, I think. I'm not sure.
I was checking out your channel, and YouTube is fairly new to me. I've been doing it since about October, but what kind of led me into my YouTube journey and podcasting was kind of a spiritual experience. A little bit about me. Some of my listeners may know, but I'm gaining about 500 people a day right now. So if this is the first time you've listened to me, my spiritual journey kind of began, my dad was a pastor, so I grew up in the church and with spirituality, but I did ayahuasca a little over a year and a half ago for some mental health PTSD challenges that I was experiencing, and doing those psychedelics actually put me in touch with our higher power in a way that I've never experienced in my life. And so
how about that?
How about that? Yeah. All of a sudden I was blasted into another consciousness and reality, and had some amazingly profound experiences that are very hard to explain to people, but there's a lot more going on out there than most people understand. And so that's why I'm happy to chat with you, because it seems like you got a little bit of insight into that.
Well, the universe is a very busy place. There's an awful lot going on that we don't see and that we're not aware of. Most of it that is in our geographic area is to help us, provide us with some guidance and assist us in our own evolutionary journey. We exist, when I say we, all of humanity, we share a common range of consciousness. And there's a very significant structure to creation. And that structure is divided into 8 ranges of consciousness. Each descending range is a fractal of the range above. We are in the 3rd range, so we are pretty near the bottom. We're the first range of consciousness that is deemed to have the capacity to assume responsibility for our own evolutionary advancement. And the Earth experience, the Earth population has had tremendous difficulties in making progress. In our galaxy, from the rest of the world around us outside of Earth considers a galaxy to be a universe.
Okay.
And so, in understanding that there's each universe, each galaxy is different from every other galaxy because there are the purpose. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Excuse me. Let me back up.
Okay.
Let me back up. Creation began as a result of the one infinite creator making a decision which was the expression of a desire. And he desired to know itself and determined the best way to do that was to experience itself. And if you understand, if you imagine that you're the one infinite creator and you're all that there is, you know you have no perception of self because you have nothing other than yourself. And so you know there's nothing to experience other than yourself. And so the one infinite creator began the creation process, which was an analog projection of itself. In other words, it projected itself as a concept. The only distinction between the one infinite creator and the analog projection was the analog projection perceived itself as being separate. Mm-hmm. That in and of itself is free will. We perceive free will to have the choice of turn right or turn left or whatever the choice may be, which we do, but the only reason we do that is because we perceive ourselves as separate. There would be no nothing to turn right to or left to, or no basis of starting point as to what our choice would be. So to greatly summarize it, creation was developed in descending layers of consciousness. Each descending layer is made possible because or by the increasing of free will, in other words, increasing the perception of separation at each descending layer. Free will acts very much like whiskey does to humans. The more you drink, the less aware you become that you do stupid things that you wouldn't do if you hadn't had that big plan for the night before anyway. So free will lowers our awareness, lowers our perceptions, and causes us to more intensely perceive that we are individuals and autonomous beings. In our range of consciousness, we have a great perception of the autonomy of our individual beingness. But from the higher consciousness perspective, they view us not only as the perceived autonomous being that we are, but they also perceive us as the population of Earth is one organism. Our solar system is one organism. Our galaxy is one organism until you go up the line and all of creation is actually one organism. And so there's a lot going on within that one organism. The commonality of the purpose and the purpose of every one of us that is existing in Earth is exactly the same, and that is to explore ourselves. That is everyone's purpose. Now, everyone has a different mission, which is distinct from the purpose. Our mission is to learn what it is that we like and do that, because if we do what we like, we will become proficient at it. And as we become proficient at it, it will bring us the types of experiences that we need in order to fulfill our purpose. Mm-hmm. We exist, you and I and everyone listening to this, exist simultaneously in both what we perceive to be the metaphysical world and the physical world. The metaphysical self is a consciousness pattern. It is enduring. We will retain that perception to the balance of our evolutionary process as we evolve through these different densities. When we die from this lifetime, we will simply integrate what we have learned back with our metaphysical self, decide what it is that we've learned, what else we need to learn, what we need to do in order to fulfill the curriculum of this range of consciousness, and then we will incarnate again. The average person has incarnated over 3,000 times on Earth, and some as many as 8,000. We've incarnated as male, we've incarnated as female, we've incarnated as a white person, black person, rich person, poor person, whatever possible combination that there is. We've been an oppressor, we've been the victim, the purpose of which is to allow us to have a different lens to interpret our experiences and incorporate that into our consciousness pattern, which is our metaphysical self. What we are learning, what is preserved after every lifetime, has nothing to do with anything physical. In the metaphysical world, they don't care whether you're a super good doctor or a really poor bricklayer or whatever your chosen task was. What is preserved is what you have learned about the inherent characteristics of the Creator, which are awareness, love, wisdom, unity, and stillness. And whatever that you've learned about those characteristics is what is preserved, and that measure of that is what propels you forward along the evolutionary path.
And so as we evolve, do we start going up the layers? We're in number 3. Do we work to number 4?
Yep.
And we just keep going for all time and eternity?
Yeah. Well, we do until we finish the process. And when we finish the process, then we'll most likely do it again. But as we're changing, what we're actually changing, we're surrendering our perception of autonomy, our perception of self. And so what we perceive to be an individual mind, body, and spirit in order to graduate from the next range of consciousness, we will surrender that, and we will form what's called a social memory complex, which simply means that a group of us that are extremely compatible will give up our perception of autonomy, and that social memory complex will be our new perception of self. And from that point on, our entire evolutionary process is the perpetual surrendering to greater degrees of our perception of autonomy, finding greater unity in the whole until we eventually return home, which is unification with the creator by our surrendering of our perception of separation.
Do you think that, so in some of my psychedelic experiences, and that's really the closest I've ever had with kind of what you're talking about and in understanding it, I've seen, other entities or angels and different types of beings. Mm-hmm. Do we transition into those, or are we just what we are and we keep working our way up? Or, it seems like there's people that are kind of looking after us and guiding us. And I don't know if we're guiding ourselves. I've heard in one of your podcasts, you were talking about your, basically your inner self is kind of guiding you. Or maybe I'm not explaining that perfectly, obviously, but your higher consciousness, that's what I'm digging for.
Your higher self.
Your higher self. That's what.
Well, we exist. We have a very limited capacity at this range of consciousness. We exist on all these levels simultaneously. Mm-hmm. It is our limitation in being able to perceive that limits us to deal with what we are dealing with here on our earthly existence. These are all minds. Minds mm-hmm. are nothing more than a bundle of beliefs. We have, in this range of consciousness, we form an ego mind, which causes us to form a hierophant or an identity, and that's who we perceive that we are. And that is our sole source of stress and suffering, this identity that we've created based upon our experiences. And so the healing process is surrendering these beliefs that we have incorporated into our identity. Every time that we experience stress, which means every time that we experience something that we don't like, that is a message to us that we are to become aware of, and become aware of what belief that I'm still holding on to in my perception of self that is bringing this stress to me. And I need to let that belief go because it's no longer serving me.
Yeah. Well, I'm one who has dealt with a lot of stress, but I've been learning to manage it better, and kind of going back to your higher consciousness. During one of my experiences, I work out of town a lot, and so, which I do not enjoy. And this is just kind of a quick higher consciousness explanation from my standpoint. Is I was at a bar by myself, working out of town, sitting at this bar, miserable, unhappy, thinking about my family and wishing I was at home. And during this process of sitting there, I felt like somebody was watching me, and nobody was watching me. I kept, I just felt like somebody's watching me. 6 months down the road, I'm doing ayahuasca. And during this journey, all of a sudden, I am the entity that is watching myself at that bar at that same time. Literally, it was my higher consciousness looking at myself. But in that moment, I had felt myself. All time is, kind of weird, but I was like, it hit me. It was me watching me,
That was that dissolution of the perception of separation.
Yeah.
We exist simultaneously. We are our higher self. Our higher self is us. All the layers in between are also us. And it's just a matter of surrendering this perception of self, the rigidness of this perception of self, and allowing ourselves to experience greater portions of ourself.
Is our higher self, it obviously has more knowledge than we do down here on Earth. Are they trying to constantly guide us, or are we trying to help ourselves? Yeah.
Well, both. They got how they guide us is they bring us experiences that we need to learn from. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of those experiences are not going to be pleasant because of the way that we are, the way that we're holding on to this perception of self. And so they give us opportunities for learning. In between lives, we have a multitude of tutors and teachers and so forth that are in. If you think of our existence as kind of like being on a sports team, mm-hmm. and you practice all week on a sports team, and you go over game films and get coaching and drills, and then you have another game. And you're supposed to remember what you learned in practice so that you can implement that in the game and do better. And we do that. We have coaching. We have all sorts of instruction in between lives. And then we have another incarnation, and we're supposed to remember what it is that we were supposed to do better this next time. And then we die, and then we go back to the coach, and the coach shows us the game film and say, well, you did this, and you didn't do that, you should, like the coach does.
Yeah. So my dad was a pastor, and my parents are believers in Christ and Jesus, and as am I, but I have a different perception than they do of a lot of things. Does this kind of fly in the face of, religion? Because my mom, she believes, you're born, you believe in Jesus, you die, you go to heaven for all time and eternity, which to me sounds kind of boring. Honestly, I'd rather keep having these life experiences and learning and growing and becoming an even better person, because I sure wouldn't want to be judged for the rest of my life based on this life, Yeah.
Well, I was raised as a Catholic, and my question that I recall from those years of my Catholicism was, when do we learn how to play the harp? I don't like the harp particularly, and why am I going to like playing the harp all of a sudden when I die?
Yeah. Well, my mom plays the harp, so I guess she's good to go.
She's preparing.
She's already ready. Yeah. I just, I bring it back to my my experience, and that's all I have to really go off of with what we're talking about. But during some of my experiences, Jesus was a real entity that showed up there and saved the day for me. But in the grand scheme of things, he's not the he was a rock star, but there was all these other different beings or entities or Buddha and all these other guys who are out there, teachers, helping guide people throughout their lives. And I kind of believe that a lot of these guys are all on the same spiritual path to help humanity.
Well, in our galaxy, our universe, there are approximately 67 million planets that are from first density to fifth density. Sixth density is the level of our higher selves. Of that 67 million, 26% of those share the same range of consciousness that we do. And so there's a lot of us, and there's 7 billion souls on Earth now, approximately, and there's that many on 26% of 67 million planets. It's a big operation. It's a big
Huge
operation.
I think only one guy could manage that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, expand the possibilities of consciousness. Jesus was an archetype. He was an incarnated individual, but he was an archetype, and his purpose was to serve as giving us information, but also as a model. And because he was a model, that's how humans learn. We observe others that we deem to be happier than we are. And so we began to mimic them and to emulate them until we become like that. It's the same principle of selling a car. You've never seen a car company advertise a car with unhappy people driving that car. Yeah. They're always happy. You buy this van and your family will be as happy as this family. If you buy this Lamborghini, then you'll have just a beautiful girl sitting next to you, just like the guy in the advertising does. And that's how we learn. We observe somebody that we deem to be happier than we are, and happiness is important because that's the measure of how we're doing. If you're getting happier, you're on the right path. If you're not, then you're off in the weeds somewhere. So what we encounter, what we perceive to be Jesus, I mean, he can't be everywhere. He's on his own evolutionary path. Because he was an archetype, we interpret others of that similar range of consciousness to be Jesus also, because he feels the same. That range of consciousness feels the same no matter where you encounter it.
Well, I was looking at a little bit, just to kind of change the subject for a second, because I want to know, like, where'd you gain all of this knowledge? And I was looking, and it says you were influenced by your studies under a sixth density creator. What does that mean?
Well, sixth density is a range of consciousness. It is the first two densities are foundational densities. They're lower than we are on the scale of consciousness. First density is essentially inorganic material, and they create the perception of the physical world that we enjoy. Second density is plants and animals, and they enhance the environment of the first density creation, which allows us to have the opportunity to exist on a planet, to have food and heat and warmth and all of that stuff. Fourth density is, the third density where we are, the fourth density and the fifth density are considered experiential densities. That's where we have the majority of our experiences of learning and diversifying and beginning from, we begin from what's called primordial darkness, which was nothing more than we're a blank canvas. We have no distortions. We're just a blank canvas, and we can paint anything on that canvas that we want. And that is our metaphysical self. And then we begin incarnating and having experiences, and we we start painting on this canvas that are creating in our metaphysical perception of self. And we have a curriculum that we are to learn at this range of consciousness in order to prepare to graduate to fourth density. And we do graduate from this range of consciousness to fourth density by fulfilling the curriculum requirements. It's no different from a third grader learning the lessons of third grade, so they'll be prepared to do the work of fourth grade. Our task at this point is to awaken, to become aware, and actually become awareness. And if you recall from my earlier comment, awareness is an inherent characteristic of the Creator. And the inherent characteristics are hierarchical only because you have to build the floor before you build the walls, and the wall before you build the ceiling and roof and so forth. So awareness is what we are tasked with learning at this range of consciousness. We get peeks behind the curtain of what the next density will feel like, what it will be like. The next density does the same thing we're doing with awareness with love. And love is not an emotion. It is not a commodity. We cannot give love. We cannot get love. We are love because it is part of who we are. We are the one infinite creator experiencing ourselves at this range of consciousness. So every time that we have felt love and we have perceived that we've gotten that from another individual, what they have actually given us is permission for us to feel comfortable enough that we will surrender this false perception of self that we have, and we have allowed ourselves to feel the love that we already are. That is what we will feel like in the next range of consciousness as we explore love by having more experiences. The fifth density, the third experiential density, will do the same thing with wisdom after they learn the curriculum and learn the lessons of love. Sixth density learns the lessons of unity, and their task is they still have experiences. All of consciousness has experiences, but sixth density is kind of they're the primary creators and the property managers. In other words, they essentially create us and guide us through our evolutionary process. They have lots of meetings, and the folks that I have opportunity to talk to, the Arcturians, explain it like they have a day job and they have a family, and they also have a cat. So they're the working density. The seventh density is pretty well, for the most part, through with that, and they've turned towards reunification with the Creator, and they are weaving all that they've learned into a new perception of the Creator. So creation, as we can conceive of it, essentially exists from fifth density down, supervised by sixth density. All higher selves come from sixth density.
It's a lot to absorb, but so I mean, how are you getting this knowledge?
Well, I have a very close and communicative relationship with my higher self, that is sixth density, and I had the privilege of having essentially not in isolation, but very limited demands by the world around me for a period of about 10 years. And I spent that 10 years in healing myself as well as learning. Mm-hmm. And you have to ask questions. They're not going to sit you down and say, this is the lesson that you need to learn today. If you ask the question, they know you're ready to receive the answers.
Do you do this through meditation?
In meditation, yeah. And it was, I've gotten to the point now that I don't really have to go into a deep meditation. I just can kind of sit and talk to. I'm not a vocal channel. It's just a communication that I have with my higher self. And I can pretty well sit down and we have a chat and, just I ask whatever questions and we just kind of hang out together for a little while.
Yeah. So I've watched a little bit of like Bashar, and he's like a channel through.
Right. He's a vocal channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And that's
Bashar is nearing the end of his fourth density experience and moving into fifth. So and that was the level that Jesus when he incarnated. Jesus has since gone on and is a fifth density entity and part of a larger social memory complex by this point. But that was the same level of consciousness that Jesus was when Jesus incarnated on earth. But Jesus has done the spirit that was Jesus has done that numerous times on other planets as well.
hmm So do you think he's coming back according to the Bible? Is he gonna
No,
return to
he's
Earth?
on no, he's on his own path. I mean,
Yeah.
he's on his own evolutionary path. We are going to have visitations from higher consciousness, which we're going to perceive as alien races, beginning in the very near future.
Yeah, I believe that. They're gearing us up for it, and it seems like maybe our government's well informed about what's going on in reality, but they're just not sharing
Well,
it.
parts of our government has been in communication for a long time. Parts of other governments too have been in communication. So there are parts of the government that knows, what is happening, but it will be presented in a way that you no longer can excuse it as swamp gas, and it's not really happening.
hmm
My understanding, the plan is that initially the purpose of it is to integrate us into more of um, the universal community,
hmm
the cosmic community. And we've been isolated. We've been actually quarantined for a long time for our own protection because we were having such difficulty.
Yeah, I don't blame them for quarantining planet Earth.
Yeah,
There's a lot of nonsense that happens around here. So,
yeah.
but I would imagine that if the aliens or this whatever entities you want to call it show up, that would actually help to move this process along at a little bit faster pace. I don't know if that's necessary if that's the plan, if God would want us to move through this school a little faster than we're chugging along, or what would be
Well, it's not a race. I mean,
yeah.
there's no competition. You can stay in this range of consciousness as long as you need to learn the lesson. So it's not like if you don't do your homework by Friday, then we're going to expel you from school. It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
But we are facing some significant changes that are unique. We are the only, we perceive there to be distance and movement. And there is no distance and movement. There are vibrational levels that are different. And so the Arcturians, for example, say that we would measure them as 2,600 light years away, but there's no difference. There's just a vibrational difference, and it's because part of our distortion is the perception of space, distance. So for them, it's not a matter of traveling 2,600 light years. It's a matter of them slowing the vibration of those that are contacting and creating essentially a portal for them to appear in our vibrational level.
Do you think that governments have figured this out, and are they traveling between?
No.
And no, not yet.
No. No. No, we have been the beneficiary of some technologies that generally we don't know about. The United States, for example, has had numerous crafts that we've created that can travel half the speed of light. And so Elon Musk's plans to go to Mars are just, it's a waste of time and energy, because we have hundreds of crafts that can do that in less time than it takes me to get to the grocery store.
So do you think it's just a way to siphon off money, or they're just not sharing
They don't
the technology?
know. Yeah, they don't, the folks that are spending the money and so forth that don't know. And so they're not in on the scoop. But my guesstimation is there are parts of the military that are not communicating with the bulk of the military, and they don't answer to the chain of command that is conducting this.
We'll see what happens over the next 4 years. They're digging into some stuff, and somebody's got to be paying the bill. So to fund all these projects. So we'll see if they dig some stuff up. But so on your book, what is the general thesis of the book, or the overall?
Well, the purpose of the book is to provide information, and it explains all that we've talked about here tonight, but it goes into much more detail. And it goes into much more of what comprises how we process thoughts. We operate under the auspices of an archetypical mind, which is a blueprint for how we process thoughts. And so understanding that allows us to, and part of that, the processing is that we create this identity. And this identity is supposed to cause us stress to maintain this identity, because we learn by analogy. We have to experience things in order to determine, narrow down what it is that we like. So we have to experience, since we start from scratch, we have to experience what we don't like, so we'll know what we do like when we encounter it. The irony is that invariably, but there is nothing that exists in all of creation that feels better than our creatorness. So when we feel our authentic self, when we feel our own awareness, when we feel the love that we are and the wisdom that we are, that feels so much better than anything that we can imagine or create or whatever. And so the process is its own motivation, because the more you give up of your perception of self, the better you feel, because you feel more of your creatorness.
That's kind of what I'm doing with this podcast. I mean, this is not my full-time gig, but it's always been burning in my heart to help other people, and to share the healing that I've experienced, but bring people on to also share those experiences, and to help humanity. Honestly, that's been my jam my entire life. And the more I do this, the more it hurts to go do something else. This is all I want to do.
I understand. Well, when you get as old as I am, then you have more time to do that, that stuff.
Yeah, or I'll just keep plugging away and have people like you come on, and someday somebody will sponsor this thing. I don't know.
Well, that would be great. Yeah, that would be great. But I applaud what you're doing. I think it's tremendous. We need more of it, and I'm just so grateful for your work and your efforts to providing information, and you're enlightening people by the conversations that you have. And you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So all you can do is give them the information, and here it is, now what are you going to do with it? But what you're doing is very badly needed. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to spread the message, but I'm also learning along the way, because I need my own help in this journey, and I have my higher consciousness, and I know he's out there I'm talking to myself and trying to guide myself, but I don't like to listen all the time, and I get stubborn, and, it's hard to stay focused. So many times I get off the get off the path, and I'm like, it takes me a while to guide myself back there, and you always feel so much better when you're doing the right thing, doing what you want to do, and helping people, or not doing it for selfish reasons, but doing it for a true purpose. And so I've found myself this week many times just like just kicking myself, and trying to figure out, like, am I doing the right thing? And
you are. Everyone is motivated to get more of what they like.
Yeah.
Now, what we like varies from person to person, but as we move onto the path, as we evolve, as we get further along the path, then the commonality of what we like comes together. And that is that breaking down of those perceptions of separation and feeling the unity that we actually all are.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a personal question, but have you ever experienced any psychedelics?
I have not. I've done what most everybody else in the world has experienced and explained as psychedelics within meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some marvelous experiences in meditation that I can't imagine any psychedelics feeling any better.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't, for me, it's not necessarily a feeling. It's just like, and I've mainly done ayahuasca, and I did that because I'm a military veteran and I was former law enforcement and dealt with a lot of PTSD, which I know you deal with, like helping people. But for me, I tried all the medications and I tried some therapies, and I never probably got paired up with the right person for me. And, but I went down there because I heard, I went to Costa Rica and did this ayahuasca experience because I heard that, veterans and former law enforcement people were getting a lot of help from it. But I did get a lot of help from it. But what I also got was just the veil was, lifted, and it was like you saw, you experience these other dimensions and these other entities, and it, just the amount of information that flowed to you during these experiences was incredible. And unfortunately, I wrote down everything I could as fast as I could as soon as I came out of it, because I didn't want to forget it. And I have 15 pages, and it's actually pretty decent stuff of my experience. But I found profound healing in it, but I also was like, came out of it with so many more questions, because it's like you're experiencing, like, we're nothing. There's this huge cosmic thing going on that I was privy to for a very short period of time, but it was as real could be, realer than reality has ever been to me. And
this is the simulation. We're experiencing the simulation 100%. Now.
Yeah. And I exited the simulation and went, oh, I think that's not real. This is real. And it's wild stuff, but trying to explain it to people, you sound like a complete nut job. So I've given up trying to explain what all I've seen, but
they'll experience what they need when they're ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's profound. Changed my life. I mean, it was wild
in a good way. It sounds like
100%. Yeah. Best thing I ever did for myself, for my family. And, I definitely, I don't promote illegal drugs, and I don't think people should ever go out and do anything, without guidance in a proper set and setting. And the place I went was a licensed medical facility ran by people who have very, very, very experienced people. So, but it was pretty incredible. But now I'm just, now I want to learn more and more about what you're talking about, and I want to learn how to be connected with that without taking psychedelics, because, you're at home all the time. And so I've tried to meditate, and that every once in a while I feel like I'm going to a black space with my eyes closed, and maybe I'm getting a little bit of downloads, but nothing major comes to me. And so I'm still trying to figure that out. Yeah.
It will. Just and follow your feeling. Yeah. Don't let it be an intellectual exercise for you, because it's a feeling. That's how we learn. And the feeling, and feeling that that freedom, that higher consciousness makes you a magnet. And so that attracts the experiences that you need according to your vibration. And it'll come to you. Just keep working on it.
I'm trying.
I explained to my meditation students that people come to meditation, and invariably they come to meditation running away from the stick. And the stick hurts. And so they want relief from the stick. And so they struggle through trying to create a meditation practice, and most people drop out because they have so much difficulty with it. But those that persist will develop a pretty good tenure in their meditation, and one day they'll get a bite of the apple, and that apple tastes really good, and so you want more of that, and your motivation transforms from running away from the stick to chasing the apple. And when you get to that break point where you have had the taste of the apple, then your practice and your awareness and everything just greatly accelerates. But ayahuasca, LSD, mushrooms, they can all give you a peek behind the curtain. So you see what is there, and it's not intended that you do that all the time. The intent is, I've had that experience. I know now what it feels like. That's what I'm striving for. And so that becomes your motivation.
Have you ever tried breath work?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've,
Is
I've,
is
that
that
help.
kind
Yeah.
of a similar experience or
Yeah.
helpful?
You can have some tremendous experiences. Stanislav Grof was a psychiatrist that developed a very effective breathworks process that he's deceased, but his work goes on. And if your listeners have the opportunity to participate in one of the Groff uh, breathwork, they'll have some tremendous experiences. Probably not as dramatic as you did with the ayahuasca, but
Yeah.
as far as feeling what unity feels like and breaking down the rigidity of our perception of self.
Yeah. So this facility I went to, they actually start you out on Sunday night with breath work. And that was the first time I ever experienced breath work, like done in a holotropic way with,
Hmm.
somebody guiding it and music and everything. And you're wearing eye mask. And I mean, just with that, all of a sudden, tears are running out of my eyes. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what in the heck's going on? It was the most emotion I had felt in 15 years, and
Hmm.
just all from air. And so I was like, boy, if air will do that to me, I don't know what ayahuasca is going to do to
Whoa.
me. Yeah. But, it was a wonderful experience. But I need to, same with meditation, have a practice and set aside the time to do it. You said you can kind of connect with, your higher self without even meditating. You've been doing it so long and
Mhm.
are so experienced at it. So do you set aside time to do that
Yeah,
throughout
I do
the
that
day?
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I set aside time every day, and obviously, some days, the world intrudes, and I don't have that time to do that. But I try to do that every day,
Is that a
and it's
early
just
morning thing or?
yeah. Well, yeah, I do it. I set aside mornings for healing
Mhm.
and that communication and learning, and I take most of my patients in the afternoon because not that much is going on in the morning, and people will come in to get help anyway because they're usually not ready to start having sessions until about 11.
Yeah. Are you so you do work with people? Are you doing in person or online or both if
Both.
people want to work with you?
Yeah, I do both, and I primarily work with trauma victims or
Okay.
people who's trying to recover from traumas, and I've been trained in some very effective methods. Traumas go away in 10 minutes.
Wow.
I've had 97% success over the last, well, I've been doing it since 2008.
Wow.
And I work at a mental health hospital here in my neck of the woods 1 day a week and work just with the veterans and
Oh, wow.
the folks I work with. I get some guys in there that have traumas from Vietnam,
Hmm.
but from Vietnam and all the way up, to recent traumas, crime victims, folks. So, there are possibilities for traumas in any activity that you do. But, PTSD are the symptoms that appear because of the trauma.
Hmm.
And they're behavior characteristics that are indicative of the results of the trauma. So when you clear the trauma, then those behavioral characteristics usually will go away on their own or with the help of a therapist just to help you put the pieces of the puzzle together. But the core problem, the seed of the problem is the trauma itself. And those go away very quickly. I worked with a woman last week, and she had 4 significant traumas, and we got rid of those in a total of 30 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I wish I would have found a guy like you, back in 2004 when I came back from Iraq, because it was just 2004, I was struggling. And then 2007, I lost my brother in an automobile accident. And it was just mayhem for the
Piling
next,
one on
13
top of
years.
another. Yeah.
Yeah. And amongst other things. And so really, I didn't have any relief, substantial relief, until 2023, and that was with
Right. Yeah.
ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Because so, but you really got to have the right person to talk to, because I talked to some people at the VA, and it was just like, they're overwhelmed, at the
Well,
VA.
they're
Uh,
overwhelmed and they're very rigid. They don't really want to experiment because then they feel that they put themselves in liability for untested procedures. But they really have no mechanisms in order to deal with it other than MDMR or medications.
yeah.
And those really are not effective. I get people. I had a guy recently that was a VA patient, and he had done EMDR, and they were going to fly this expert EMDR person in from California in order to work with him. And I said, well, let me work with you for a minute. And so I worked with him. In 10 minutes, I cleared his trauma. And he said, what the hell is this? Where'd this go? So at any rate, the therapist that was working with him actually wanted to know what I did, and she became my patient.
Wow.
So,
Well, you have a gift, sir. I mean,
well, it's not me, it's the process. It's a process that was created by Dr. Zibrad Slavinsky, who is a Serbian psychologist. And Zivo died a couple years ago, and he's the genius. But I trained under him, and he was a very good teacher as well as a remarkably talented therapist slash psychologist. And I attribute the process is not magic, but what it does for people is magic.
have you written a book on it?
I have a book, the Identity Model, Understanding and Healing Mankind's Stress and Suffering. And it explains all about the identity that we've been talking about, and how that is the source of our stress and why that becomes suffering. And I have a description of the exercises that I use in the back of the book that you can apply yourself. There's no, as I say, there's no magic to it. You can follow the directions and receive benefit from it yourself.
Wow. I mean, I'm going to read it because
Okay.
I was definitely, I feel like I cleared pretty much most of my traumas, but, new things pop up, life happens, and life
Sure.
continues. And so you need to kind of have other tools to work with. So I would love to read that, and I will.
Yeah, can't go back to Costa Rica every weekend.
No, I've actually been 3 times because
Okay.
not because of the healing trauma part, because I learned so much in that initial. I'm like, I want to learn more, and and every time I've gone down there, it's been a different experience. Nothing. The first time was the most incredible, changed my life. The other 2 times, I got a lot out of it, and it was very beneficial. But I wasn't healing the crazy PTSD that I was dealing with.
Yeah.
Sincerely. And
The transformation continued, but it wasn't as dramatic as the first
correct.
time.
Yeah. And I want to go back, and I want to, so if you're listening, take me down there.
Okay.
I want to go back, but it's more to learn more about myself, and not, it's not a fun experience at all. It's actually very, very hard, and you get sick to your stomach, and you're sick.
I was going to ask you if you had the nausea and the illness.
But you can get it from both ends. I mean, it's not a pleasant experience, and nobody's getting addicted to it, I promise you. Yeah, but it's not always, it comes in spurts, and so,
Yeah.
but you also feel that love you were talking about. I felt that literally during my second trip there, even though I had been healed from I felt like all the trauma and PTSD, my heart still, just at that time I was struggling with just feeling compassion and love for other people. And I felt, I told the shaman, my heart feels dead, and I was having a very, very hard time. And she said a prayer over me and did a bunch of stuff, sprayed something on me. And I went and laid back in my bed and closed my eyes. And, I could try to explain what happened, but literally, they they say, and I believe, and that's kind of where a lot of all these tattoos came from my first experience.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I didn't have any of this stuff until I went to Costa Rica, and so it changed my life and changed the way I look.
Good.
But I was given a new heart there on that second trip down, but literally my chest felt like it was literally cut open, and the next day it hurt from surgery. But the most incredible feeling of love hit me for probably 15-20 hours that I've never experienced in my life. It was just the most overwhelming sense of love that you could ever imagine. And it was, so now I'm chasing that dragon, as a junkie would say.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Like, man, you want to feel that love.
I had a visitation. It was just in meditation, no additives or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a visitation from my higher self and my higher self's equivalent higher self. And they came in, and I was just completely shocked by this. But one held one hand and other one held the other hand, and I couldn't tell you whether they were there for 3 days or 3 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Time just absolutely vanished. But it was such an overwhelming feeling of love and just joy. And when they left, and it took me a good 30 minutes before I could stand up.
Yeah.
My legs were shaking so much. I'd never had an experience before that or since then, but it was just overwhelming love that just absolutely. And I said, listen, you can come back anytime.
Anytime. I would love to have that experience again, for sure.
Yeah.
And no, it's incredible. And yeah, just talking about it just now, honestly, my body's warm. Just feel the joy. Like it was incredible. And so I'm going to continue to try to connect with my higher self and my heart, and
keep working on it. You'll make it. And understand that you're going to interpret it. It's going to sound like you, because they're communicating telepathically. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they come in and you hear a different voice, but it'll be a very familiar voice. Mm-hmm. You said, is that me? Or I recognize that, but then you start asking questions, and just, you can clearly distinguish
that's the key.
The difference in your voice and their voice.
Ask questions. Okay. So normally I'm just thinking things, and, a lot of times I feel like it's,
well,
my higher self, but yeah.
Well, you gotta ask the questions, because as I say, they're not going to sit you down and say, this is what you need to know. Yeah. You've got to show them, by virtue of your question, what you're ready to receive.
Okay. I like it. Well, I think we've touched on quite a few things today. I don't want to take up all your night, but man, I've loved this conversation, and you are just the guy I need to talk to today, and put me back in line, and especially this week. So I appreciate you taking time to talk with me.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, Tim. I've enjoyed this tremendously.
Absolutely. If people want to get your book or get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that? And I will also tag you, but this is just for listeners.
I have a website, the D. Dean Graves, all one word, .org. And I have, if they need some help with their traumas or healing emotional baggage, all my books are referenced on there. I give you links to that. Links to the podcasts are there. That's my central focal point. So you can contact me there if you have questions you want to communicate, and you can do that there too.
All righty. Dean, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this conversation. If you've gotten something out of this conversation, please share it with your friends, subscribe, follow Dean and his podcast, and we'll keep changing the world. Thank you, everybody.
Do it one podcast at a time.
Absolutely.